Due to the short lifespan of video games, manufacturers and operators had to come up with ways to increase the flow of quarters being pumped into the game's coin box.
Oh yeah.
Let's briefly look at how manufacturers and operators sought to increase revenue, starting with Atari Football. When Atari released football in 1978, the owner of the game could choose between a variety of game time durations. For example, game time could be 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, or 3 minutes. When Atari updated the game a year later with the 4-player version, maximum game times were drastically reduced. Operators could only choose between one of two time settings: 1 minute 10 seconds or 1 minute 30 seconds. An obvious attempt to increase revenue for operators. Atari Baseball. The operator could set prices for the first inning at 25 cents or 50 cents for each player. If a player or players wanted to play more, they would have to insert another quarter for each inning thereafter. So the game could generate a maximum of $2.50 for 9 innings of play per player. But wait a second here. Have you ever played a 9-inning game on a video game console? Well, those games can take a long time, which is why Atari had 4 different difficulty levels to help shorten those play times. At the easiest levels, infielders are poor and the game times are the longest. At the most difficult level, infielders are excellent and game times are the shortest. Because no matter what level the game is set on, fielders get better as the game progresses through the innings. Operators had to be careful. If the game was too hard, players would get discouraged and stop playing the game. If the game was too easy, the players could play forever, resulting in a loss of revenue for the operator. Missile Command. Atari Connection published a full-page article with tips and suggestions to help operators increase revenue for the immensely popular game Missile Command. It clearly states if scores are not in the neighborhood of 30,000 to 40,000 points after the first 3 weeks of operation, the difficulty settings may be too high. And in reverse, if after 3 weeks the scores are too high, then the operator should seriously think about increasing the difficulty settings. The game could also be made more difficult by simply increasing points needed to obtain a bonus city. In Missile Command, the game was ended when all cities entrusted to the player to protect are destroyed. The operator could control the number of cities a player got for 1 quarter. You could get as many as 7 cities for 1 play, or as little as 4 cities for 1 play. Galaga. Released in September 1981 by Namco and licensed to Bally Midway by October of that same year, Galaga described its difficulty levels as such: Rank A, easiest level; Rank B, second level of difficulty; Rank C, third level of difficulty; and Rank D, most difficult level of play. I was always pretty good at this game. I wonder what level of difficulty I was playing on. Probably B. Motor Race USA was released in March 1983 by IREM and licensed to Williams for distribution in America. Players had to race their motorcycle across the USA, starting in Los Angeles and ending in New York City. The concept of the game was simple: make it to New York before your motorbike ran out of gas.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it. It ain't got no gas in it.
First stage was Los Angeles. Then you went to Las Vegas, Houston, St. Louis, Chicago, and the finish line, the Big Apple. Each time your motorcycle crashed or hit a water puddle, fuel was deducted from your gas tank. At the low or easiest difficulty setting, 8.3% of your fuel would evaporate from the gas tank per collision. On the medium setting, 11.7% of the fuel was drained from your tank. The hard setting siphoned away 15% of your gas. And finally, at the maximum difficulty setting, 18.3% of your gas was stolen. The operator's manual states it usually takes a player about 2 minutes to get from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Williams believes this was a perfect balance for the operator and player. At 2 minutes, players would be satisfied with the length of the game, and the quarters will flow into the game machine at a sufficient enough rate to allow the operator to make money. However, the operator's manual also warns of the 6-minute time it takes for a player to get from Los Angeles to New York City. If players are able to make it to New York or even Chicago on one quarter, the manufacturer recommends operators to hike up the game settings, making the game harder, reducing player play times. Moon Patrol. I couldn't find any difficulty settings for this popular Williams game. However, it did allow the operator to increase points needed for a player to be rewarded with an extra life. The number of lives a player received on one quarter could also be adjusted, to as many as 5 lives for one quarter, to as low as 2 lives for a quarter. Hold up, 2 lives for a quarter? Highway robbery. Space Duel. What was cool about Space Duel was that 2 people could play at the same time, which was a pretty big deal in 1982. The player or players would have to shoot targets that entered from various sides of the screen. It had the 4 typical difficulty levels: easy, normal, medium, and hard. Basically, at the higher levels, the game threw more targets for you to shoot. Also, enemy targets moved faster. Operators could control the number of lives given for one quarter and the points needed to win an extra life. What made Space Duel unique was it had an operator accounting display, which showed the total time the game was on, number of games played by type, and the total seconds each game was played. Operators would be looking very close to the average play times. Space Duel had two types of games: fighter mode, which we see here with the capital F, and the space station mode, denoted here with the big S. The one-player fighter mode has an average of 176 seconds, which is about 2 minutes and 56 seconds. Now, if we apply Williams' 2-minute rule to this game, you remember the one. The rule that claims that 2-minute play times were sufficient enough to satisfy the player and also fill the machine's coin box. This one-player fighter mode game is definitely over the time. Not good. It gets even worse when we look at the average play time for the one-player space station mode. The average game time for this type is almost 4 minutes per game. Whoa boy, that's a good value game for the player. Not such a good value for the operator. They're losing money on that one. Williams Electronics had the same feature for their popular line of games. You remember the ones. Williams called theirs the bookkeeping and evaluation screen, and it looked like this. Sorry, I couldn't help myself on that one. It looked like this. This data is from a Robotron 2084 game cabinet. This white-knuckle futuristic kill everything that moves game sits right at 2 minutes. It has achieved peak coin collection and player satisfaction. All this to help operators rig games in order to maximize the amount of quarters being pumped into a video game's machine coin box.